Our name is Ghosts Want You Dead. Often, to truly understand current events, one must turn one's gaze to the past. When you find yourself confronting the past, be careful. What you find may terrify you.
Hello, I'm Rebecca.
And I'm Matthew. Dark Shadows began as a sort of Victorian horror uh, pastiche of all of the old stories of frightened governesses in crumbling old mansions, dark tales of wealth, crime, and revenge.
As the series progressed, it took a slight turn for the supernatural without going overboard, just a ghost or two. In the second year, this went a step further after the first big supernatural story wrapped up and the show turned back towards mystery. Ratings waned, and the show leaned heavily back into the supernatural with episodes 210 forward.
And it worked like gangbusters and gave us the camp horror classic we know and love today, boasting a decades-long fandom and still drawing viewers almost exactly 60 years later, with a new animated series on the way to boot.
On streaming services, the show is split into Dark Shadows The Beginning, which is episodes 1 through 210, and Dark Shadows, which is episodes 211 forward. The show's massive success began with episode 211.
Though we adore the beginning episodes, some people do find them a bit slow and prefer to start at episode 211 where things take a turn for the spookier. If that's how you prefer to watch the show, then stick with us, as we're about to explain the setting, characters, and major events leading up to episode 211. So you'll be able to start there with an idea of who these people are and what the hell is going on. Over on our YouTube channel at Ghosts Want You Dead, there is an accompanying slideshow of screenshots for visuals. That video is linked in the episode notes if you prefer to watch along.
Roughly an hour's drive from Bangor, Maine, not far from Bar Harbor, a large and fog shrouded hill looms over a small New England fishing village. The locals refer to it as Widow's Hill, named for the wives of fishermen who once gathered there to watch for the return of the boats carrying their husbands. At the high edge of the hill, there is a sharp 100-foot drop in the freezing, roiling waters of the Atlantic, where they beat furiously against the rocks. On this fog shrouded hill along the Maine coast sits a once grand estate. The sprawling main house is a shadow of its former splendor. Half of its 40 rooms are closed to save money, time, and energy. The grounds also contain the ruins of the original family home of the estate's original owners, which their descendants refer to as the old house. The estate contains a small, in comparison to the main house, cottage, which may or may not be cursed. There are other outbuildings, a greenhouse, and a dilapidated fishing shack.
The small fishing village is called Collinsport. The estate is called Collinwood. Both of these are so named for the Collins family. Isaac Collins crossed the Atlantic from England to Maine in 1690. He started what would remain the family business for centuries, the Collins fishing fleet and cannery, which would make the Collins family generationally wealthy. By 1966, the Collins family owns, literally or figuratively, most of the town that bears their name. Amongst the other residents of Collinsport, rumors swirl about the residents of the vast old mansion up on the haunted hill. Stories of strange goings on circulate regularly. The family? Hella cursed. The house? Super haunted. The current owner? A mysteriously reclusive old witch. In New York, Victoria Winters is a teacher at the Hammond Foundling Home, where, incidentally, she was also left on the steps as an infant, abandoned in a basket with a note reading, "Her name is Victoria. I cannot take care of her." Victoria doesn't know anything about the Collinses or Collinsport, Maine, when she receives a strange proposal via letter offering her a highly paid position to work as a governess at the Collinwood estate.
Victoria Winters is a pretty young girl of 20 with big, dreamy eyes and cheekbones for days, a prominent forehead, and a pronounced chin. Her mouth is naturally downturned at the corners, which results in a resting, sad face. She is serious and generally direct, though polite. She doesn't want to hurt anyone's feelings, so she sometimes holds her tongue, but has occasional moments of having taken enough shit and then telling it like it is. She delivers the opening voiceover for each episode in a manner that we ape for our own intros to the podcast. When the letter arrives offering her the position, she knows only that a woman whom she has had no previous knowledge of, Mrs. Elizabeth Collins Stoddard, would like to engage her as a governess to her 9-year-old nephew, David, in Collinsport, Maine. Victoria learns that Collinsport is near Bangor. At the foundling home, funds for the upkeep of young orphan Victoria arrived monthly, presumably from her family of origin, with a Bangor, Maine postmark. This is enough for Miss Winters to accept this sketchy offer for a position to which she had not applied. She intends to take the job in Maine to investigate her past and potentially find her family.
We join Miss Winters on the train from New York City to Collinsport, Maine. She learns from a busybody passenger that the train does not regularly stop in Collinsport, with it being as small and remote as it is. On arrival at the train station in Collinsport, Miss Winters approaches a tall, dark, and handsome stranger who has just arrived on the same train. She asks this stranger how she might get a taxi into town. He informs her that that isn't likely. He insinuates he has been in Collinsport before and offers her a ride in his chauffeured car to the inn in town, and there she might be able to find a taxi. He introduces himself as Burke Devlin, a name we will hear often for these first few episodes. Our nickname for him for a while was Burke Devlin,
Devlin, Burke
Burke Devlin,
Devlin, Burke
Burke Devlin,
Devlin.
because people always say his whole name.
Oh,
The,
and
Why,
frequently.
you're that Burke Devlin, or I'm going to see Burke Devlin.
Gee, Burke Devlin, I don't know Burke Devlin.
Anyhow,
Yeah.
Burke Devlin is our tall, dark, and handsome, mysterious stranger, and all of the ladies remark on how hot he is. Frankly, I don't see it, but Becca sort of did in the beginning before we got to know him.
Yeah, I mean, that's usually how it goes for me.
Born and raised working class in Collinsport, Burke has returned, now 40 years old, wealthy, and made bitter and vengeful by events which precipitated his 10-year absence. When Mr. Devlin learns Miss Winter's destination is the Collinwood estate, he encourages her to turn right around and go back where she came from. On arrival at the inn, Mr. Devlin makes a big show out of pretending not to recognize the desk clerk, who definitely recognizes him. After checking into the inn and arranging for the town's only taxi driver to eventually come collect Miss Winters after repairing his flat tire, Burke heads over to the Blue Whale. The Blue Whale is the most happening night spot in Collinsport by virtue of being the only night spot in Collinsport. It is a drab room sporting a bar and a jukebox that seems to only have three songs. Also, there are a few tables with checkered cloths. The Blue Whale is vaguely nautical in theme. The wood paneled walls are festooned with life preservers, and fishing nets are hung from the ceiling. The bar also serves food, so the Blue Whale is both Collinsport's primary date spot and where everyone goes to go on a bender. It is here that Mr. Devlin meets the private detective he has engaged, a Mr. Strake, whom he has sent in advance of his visit to Collinsport to dig up any available dirt on the Collins family. While the gentlemen touch base at the bar, Miss Winters waits for her taxi to Collinwood in the diner at the inn, where she meets the charming waitress Maggie Evans.
Maggie Evans is the daughter of the town drunk. She's a beautiful young lady with an expressive face. When we first meet her, she's having an ugly wig phase, but it is done away with pretty quickly. Similar to Victoria Winters, she has slightly longer than shoulder length dark hair, which is occasionally styled to be big. Like most people who work in tipped positions, she can easily turn on the charm. She's very inquisitive, which is a polite way of saying that she's the town gossip. She delights in learning and spreading everyone's business. A theme emerges when Maggie, upon learning Miss Winter's destination, also encourages her to flee Collinsport, to never look back. She tries to frighten Miss Winters with tales of a family of kooks inhabiting a spooky old haunted house, which, in a nod to the source of most of the show's storylines, Miss Winters dismisses as sounding like some old English novel with rattling chains, ghosts in the corridors. Maggie implies that that's just about right. As Miss Winters' taxi arrives, Maggie gives up on trying to dissuade her from heading there. Miss Winters is deposited in front of the large double doors of the spooky old mansion and knocks. An answer is slow to come, but a mysterious figure eventually emerges from the shadows and invites her in. Elizabeth Collins Stoddard, in an unusual casting for low budget daytime TV, is portrayed by legit movie star Joan Bennett, whose decades long film career was derailed by a scandal when her husband suspected her of having an affair with her agent. He then shot the agent lived, and the husband got off with a slap on the wrist in the form of a 4-month sentence. Mrs. Bennett, however, lost her mainstream film career. Thanks to this casting, Elizabeth Collins Stoddard has the stunning appearance and regal bearing of an old Hollywood star. The 49-year-old matriarch of the Collins family, she runs the family business, the Collins Fishing Fleet and Cannery, which we usually just refer to as fish business. She makes it clear she is the sole owner of the family home and business. We learn early in the series that Elizabeth hasn't left the grounds of the Collinwood estate in 18 years, not since her husband Paul Stoddard disappeared. After her husband was out of the picture, the young Mrs. Stoddard fired all but one servant, whom she refers to as a man for the heavy work. We assume landscaping and handyman stuff, maybe the occasional body disposal. The burly and menacing Matthew Morgan is a mean simpleton who often states he will defend the Collinses, particularly Liz, at any cost. When we meet Elizabeth, the grand dame busies herself with running the business from home and doing all of the cooking and cleaning herself. No wonder she sometimes has a short temper.
Mrs. Stoddard has engaged Victoria to educate the son of her brother Roger. Just before Miss Winters is hired, Elizabeth's brother Roger returns to the family estate, having previously lived with his wife Laura and their 9-year-old son David. Laura developed a drinking problem, had a breakdown, and ended up in a mental hospital. Roger, unprepared for single fatherhood and having burned through his inheritance, ran home to ride his still wealthy sister's coattails. Elizabeth sets him up with a nominal position in the family business and allows him and young David to live at Collinwood. Roger Collins, at age 40, has let a privileged life make him an entitled snob. He's never met an ascot he didn't like. He is handsome, but in a harsh and angular sort of way, a dandy daddy with a case of resting bitch face. Roger seems perpetually annoyed, which I relate to. Much of this annoyance is directed at his son David. To be fair, David is a precocious and bratty little boy, clearly damaged by his mother's mental breakdown and disappearance, and his emotionally absent, borderline abusive father. He is a morbid child, his eyes lighting up only when discussing the estate's various ghosts or past tragic events. Rounding out the Collins household is Elizabeth's daughter. She's meant to be about 18, a pretty young blonde who, on the surface, seems to be the Marilyn Munster of the serious, spooky Collins family. A happy go lucky teen of the swingin' 60s. Lurking below the pretty surface is a flair for drama, general boy craziness, and at least one personality disorder. Also, a seeming fascination with incest. Her relationship with her uncle Roger is very suspicious and flirty. He calls her kitten a lot, and it grosses us out. Carolyn is dating Collinsport's lone, young, hot guy, Joe Haskell. He's a fisherman for the Collins fish business, but has dreams of buying a boat and starting a fish business of his own someday. He's been courting Carolyn since she was 16 and wants to marry her. Over the first 120 episodes or so, we witness Carolyn toy with Joe, repeatedly pulling him closer, but then, when he proposes marriage, pushing him away. She openly makes a fool of him by developing a giant crush on Burke Devlin and chasing him all over town, only running back to Joe when Burke rebuffs her advances.
Victoria learns that the warnings from the townspeople about the spooky old house and its kooky residents weren't just gossip. In short order, she hears strange noises and ghostly sobbing in the night, emanating from a locked room in the scary basement, which Mrs. Stoddard freaks out about, admonishes Vicky for prying, and forbids her from going in the basement again. She is met by an initially icy reception from all of the Collins clan, save Carolyn. Hmm.
My animations, I put in too many clicks there.
Hmm.
Early in Miss Winter's employment at Collinwood, her young pupil David attempts to murder his father by removing the brake bleeder valve from his car, a neat trick he learned from a magazine. We also learn early on that Burke Devlin has returned for his Count of Monte Cristo style revenge. Turns out that Burke and Roger used to be the best of friends until 10 years ago, when the pair had taken Burke's former girlfriend, who was at the time Roger's girlfriend, Laura, out drinking. On the way back, all of them were drunk, all three in Burke's car, which struck and killed a pedestrian. Burke was imprisoned for manslaughter 10 years ago, after Roger and Laura testified that Burke had been the one driving. They apparently got married later that week. Anyway, Burke was pretty drunk at the time, so he can't be 100% certain, but he is pretty sure that he was not actually driving. Roger was. So, naturally, after this attempt on Roger's life, suspicion falls on Burke first. Later, when the family discovers that David was, in fact, the attempted murderer, the whole thing is swept under the rug.
Regarding the manslaughter that Burke was convicted of, it also becomes clear early on that Burke is correct, and Roger was actually driving the car that killed the man. Roger and Laura lie on the stand. Roger bribes local artist Sam Evans by paying him $15,000, which today would roughly amount to $184,000 for a few paintings that weren't worth the canvas they were painted on, to lie to the police and say he saw Burke driving the manslaughter mobile. Burke has returned for revenge, and he doesn't want to kill anybody. He just wants to buy up all the Collinses' properties and run them out of business. He purchases a rival fish business. Bill Malloy, manager of the Collins fish business, is fiercely loyal to the Collinses, Elizabeth in particular. He's been in love with her for years and doesn't like all this Burke Devlin stuff. Burke used to work with the Collins fish business, and Bill used to be his boss, so they have a relationship. Bill tries to stop Burke's revenge scheme by helping him clear his name for the manslaughtering. He also believes that Roger was responsible for the death and aims to prove it. He organizes a meeting at Roger's office between himself, Sam Evans, Roger Collins, and Burke Devlin, which we affectionately refer to as Manslaughter Club. Bill doesn't make the meeting, as he is killed shortly before it was to take place. It is left unclear for some time if the death is an accident, a murder, or a suicide.
Suspicion for Bill's death falls on Sam, Roger, Burke, and even Liz at various times. Much fuss is made about a silver filigree fountain pen, which is very expensive. Burke owns the pen, having given one just like it to his lawyer as a gift. Burke gifts his copy of the fancy pen to Carolyn, but her family is super pissed, and Roger takes it away from her with the intention of returning the inappropriate gift to Burke. But Roger never manages to get around to it. he instead loses the pen on the beach where Bill died, which we call Murder Beach. The pen, Murder Pen. When Burke is revealed to be the original owner of the pen, we think he must be the killer. But then when we learn Roger has the pen, he must be the killer. While this is going on, we also learn that Collinwood is indeed haunted. The ghost of Bill Malloy appears to Victoria Winters to warn her that she is in danger of being murdered by the same person who murdered him. Incidentally, this visitation occurs while David has Victoria locked in an isolated, abandoned room, seemingly attempting to starve her to death as revenge for her telling on him for trying to kill his father.
It's wild. The ghost of Josette Collins, who either fell, was pushed, or jumped from the cliff at Widow's Hill, also begins to appear. She hangs out in her portrait hanging in the old house and likes to make it glow all ghostly like. She climbs out of the painting as if on an invisible staircase, and she does some Kate Bush Wuthering Heights style ghost twirling. David is good pals with Ghost Josette and tells Vicky she will only appear to a single individual at a time. Victoria is eventually freed from ghost jail by a reluctant Roger who initially pretends to be a ghost and frightens her before eventually letting her out of the locked room. Everyone is dismissive of her ghost sighting. While Bill was secretly in love with Liz for decades, his housekeeper, Sarah Johnson, was in love with him for decades. Mrs. Johnson is a pinch faced, middle aged woman who rather reminds one of Miss Gulch from The Wizard of Oz. Burke engages her to spy for him at Collinwood and manipulates Carolyn into convincing Liz to hire her as a housekeeper. Her reoccurring bit is proclaiming that she's not one to gossip immediately before doing so. All of this who killed Bill murder pen business plays out over the course of episodes 47 to 126.
Sorry about that, folks. I was nervously fidgeting and messing with the scroll wheel and didn't realize that was going to advance the slides a bunch. So pay no attention to all of that.
Oh, should I just go back?
No, it's fine. Nothing really happened on that slide anyway. It was just pictures of Mrs. Johnson.
Okay. And
then
murder pen.
Murder Pen. The truth is eventually revealed when Matthew Morgan confesses to Victoria that he killed Bill.
No.
Though he claims it was an accident. Morgan had confronted Bill Malloy on the beach, only meaning to ask him not to help Burke Devlin with Manslaughter Club, because that would inconvenience Mrs. Stoddard. Miss Winters has a habit of being held captive by creeps. So Matthew kidnaps her and holds her hostage at the old house, where David brings him snacks and cigarettes. Matthew eventually decides to kill Miss Winters as well, but she is saved by the ghosts of Collinwood, who initially just appear as voices to taunt Matthew and make him think he might be losing his faculties, but eventually they begin appearing to him en masse and they harass him with more visions and ghostly voices until he dies of fright. After the murder of Bill is resolved, David's previously absent mother, Laura Collins, née Murdoch, who last we heard was in a mental institution after going on a bender and then going crazy, mysteriously turns up in town. She skulks around the inn, fishing for information about the Collins family from Maggie, the gossipy waitress, who naturally obliges. Maggie's dad, Sam, freaks out when he sees this mysterious lady as he recognizes her from Manslaughter Club. Laura Murdoch Collins is a beautiful, bouffanted blonde, evoking Tippi Hedren in The Birds or Janet Leigh in Psycho. As Laura tells it, she is freshly released from the mental hospital and she's come back to Collinsport to amicably divorce Roger, asking for not a single cent of money or property in the settlement. The only thing she wants is sole custody of their son, David. Roger is absolutely fine with this, happy to be rid of the both of them. But Elizabeth is skeptical and thinks David would be better off with her at Collinwood as the heir apparent. Complicating matters is David's questionable paternity. As we mentioned earlier, before marrying Roger, Laura dated Burke Devlin, and it is alluded to several times by Laura, Burke, and Roger that none of them are really certain which of the former best friends is actually David's father. Burke is eager to get back with Laura and also wants her to tell the truth about Manslaughter Club to clear his name. And she agrees to do this just as long as he will make sure that she gets custody of David first.
Speaking of the birds, it turns out that not only does Laura bear a passing resemblance to Tippi Hedren in the show's first big step toward the paranormal, beyond a few ghost sightings, she is also a bird lady. Specifically, she is the phoenix of legend, a magical bird who every 100 years immolates itself only to be reborn from the ashes. But also, she's a pretty hot lady. Don't think too hard about it. Bird Lady has come to town because she's ready to burn herself up again, but she wants to take little David into the flames with her so he can come back as her child in the next incarnation. She doesn't conceal all of this very well, and it is obvious to the audience early on what she is up to, but it takes the Collinsport crew a painfully long time to figure it out. After Elizabeth decides she won't allow Laura to take custody of David, Laura bird magics Liz into a coma. Her regular doctor can't determine what's wrong with her, so, on the recommendation of one of the family's attorneys, Frank, a young man who is casually dating Victoria, engages the dreamy parapsychologist Dr. Peter Guthrie, who we alternately refer to as Dr. Ghostbuster and Dr. Daddy, to get to the bottom of the strange goings on at Collinwood since Laura came to town. In addition to Liz's bird magic coma,
Sam Evans has unwillingly painted repeated portraits of Laura Collins with wings being consumed by fire. These portraits have a curious David shaped blank space in the bottom right corner, which the ghost of Josette Collins later fills in with David's image. After Laura pays a visit to Sam, simply to ask him to knock off all these prophetic paintings, his hands later that day magically burst into flame. Victoria and Frank discover a series of improbable coincidences with the aid of the ghost of Josette Collins and also an adorable old cemetery caretaker whom we call Grandpa Graveyard. I can't remember if I've put a picture of him in here. Yes, there he
It's
is.
Grandpa
There's Grandpa
Graveyard.
Graveyard. Hi,
Hi,
Grandpa.
Grandpa. Love you.
Josette leads Vicky to an old cemetery where it is discovered that exactly 100 years ago, a Laura Murdoch Radcliffe died by fire. Exactly 100 years before that, a Laura Murdoch Stockbridge died in the same manner. In the middle of all that, the police in Phoenix, Arizona, because Phoenix like the Phoenix, get it? Real subtle. Anyway, the Phoenix police have discovered a charred body in an apartment fire. The apartment belonged to Laura Murdoch Collins, and the body is eventually identified through dental and medical records as being that of Laura Murdoch Collins. But how can this be when she is alive and well in Collinsport, Maine? Dr. Daddy, Roger, Carolyn, and Vicky hold a very when Harry met Sally fake orgasm scene seance to contact Josette. But Bird Lady crashes and fouls it up. After puzzling over the myriad clues for weeks, Dr. Guthrie, Vicky, Frank, Carolyn, Burke, Sam, Roger, and even Dreamy Joe join the Laura is definitely up to something spooky club. When Dr. Guthrie threatens to expose Laura as an immortal magic phoenix bird lady witch or whatever, Laura magically causes Dr. Guthrie to die in a fiery car accident.
We were very sad to see Dr. Daddy go. This all leads up to Laura pretending to give up and leave town before magically vanishing from the bus taking her to Boston, sneaking back to Collinwood in the night to spirit David away to the abandoned fishing shack, where she sets them both on fire to bring on the next incarnation. Vicky, with what we think is a psychic assist from Josette and Elizabeth, just awakened from her magic coma, rescues David from the flames at the last minute. He promptly forgets all of the spooky shit that his mother just pulled, only remembering that his mom came back, but then she left again. Her body has vanished from the fire, leaving no trace. As soon as the bird lady business wraps up, our next villain arrives in Collinsport, not giving anybody a moment to rest before the next mystery. Was it not enough time?
It was good enough. There was another picture of David and Vicky that I forgot about.
Oh,
That's okay. A shady character with an Irish accent and a sailor hat starts turning up around town. First at the Blue Whale, annoying Joe and Maggie while they're on a date. Then later, giving Victoria Winters the third degree about the Collins family when he runs into her in the diner at the inn. He wants to know who all lives at the house and what is their precise location at this exact moment and all of their biographical details. And if you have social security numbers, that would also be good. He turns up at Collinwood. Carolyn answers the door and he doesn't want to tell her his name at first, saying only that he's an old friend of Liz and wants to surprise her. When he confronts Liz, she is unpleasantly surprised to the point of shock to see him. We learn that he is Jason McGuire, but we just call him Jerry McGuire. He tells Carolyn that he was a good friend of her father, Paul. It becomes obvious pretty quickly that he has something on Liz. Something that has to do with the secret locked room in the basement that she freaks out when anyone goes near or asks about. And Jerry Maguire begins to blackmail her with this secret. First, for an invite to stay at Collinwood. Then he wants some fancy clothes, and eventually does ask Mrs. Stoddard to show him the money. Liz grudgingly acquiesces to his demands, and Roger is furious about it and wants Jerry Maguire out. But Liz continues to allow herself to be blackmailed. Jerry Maguire also brings his pal and partner in crime,
Willie Loomis, to town so he can get in on the blackmailing Liz job. He generally acts a fool and Bert kicks his ass. Willie is skeevy and rapey, and he makes unwanted passes at Vicky, Maggie, and Carolyn. None of them like it, but when he forces his way into also staying at Collinwood and tries it with Carolyn, our girl pulls a gun on the son of a bitch, and it's pretty great.
yes.
Victory. Yeah.
Willie notices a portrait of a particularly spookily handsome ancestor on the wall, one Barnabas Collins. Between the painting, gossip from Mrs. Johnson, the housekeeper, and what he picks up in a book of family history and from asking David questions about it, he begins to suspect that there is hidden treasure in the Collins family crypt. He plans to fuck over Jerry Maguire and make off with all of the graveyard treasure. In the last scene of episode 210, Willie has breached the secret room in the Collins family crypt, where he discovers a coffin wrapped in chains. Sweet, he thinks. This must be where the treasure is. So he opens the coffin, his face slowly changing from excitement to terror as a frilly cuffed hand with a large black ring on its index finger shoots up from the coffin and begins to strangle Willie. Like that.
That's hot.
I was late on the animation.
That's
Sorry
okay.
about
We're
that.
doing the best we can.
We're looking at three monitors and trying to.
I'm sure you've seen us all darting around.
Well, naturally, you are intrigued and simply must know what happens next. Worry not. We recap a week's worth of episodes every Monday.
We do.
Watch along with us and join us on Mondays to talk about the show. Today, July 13th, we also released our next episode covering episodes 211 through 215 of the show. So watch those on Tubi or Prime or the Internet Archive or wherever else you might find them and meet us back here.
Yeah. This program is brought to you by Amy, Austin, and Jacob via our Patreon at patreon.com/ghostwantyouddead, where you can join the ranks of our spectral supporters for bonus material, access to chat with us and other listeners on Discord, and other rewards, which you can read about on our Patreon.
Also, follow us on Instagram, Blue Sky, Threads, and YouTube at Ghosts Want You Dead. Thank you for joining us, and goodbye.
Goodbye.